Welcome to Too Many Tabs, a podcast where a husband and wife duo sit across from each other at a table, where one of them has been doing research for way too long about a specific Hollywood starlet, and it's spread into a 3-part epic. And that epic is here to end today, the final part of the trilogy. We're doing it for Mommy this time.
I am so deeply unnerved by that.
Yeah, well, I'm not wearing makeup this time.
Thank goodness.
I know I freaked a few people out, and it
was worth it and incredible, and I sat here stone-faced the whole time.
You really did. You really did. As I sat there with makeup that was so white it made my teeth yellow. Mm-hmm. It was a great time.
And eyeliner so strong it took 3 days to come off.
It really did. And it was so great going through airport security with dripping eyeliner still on. I didn't at all look like Chris Jericho trying to run away from January 6th. Let's get this show started.
Too many frauds and too many scammers that we wish weren't real. Too many cons and too many spammers, and we're starting to feel like we've got too many tabs open. It's too many tabs. Remember to smile.
Let's go. We're back. Please stop hitting the button.
Okay.
I have very important things to tell you.
What do you have to tell me that's so important?
Okay, we got to talk more about Bette Davis. Here's what happened.
But
I read a lot of books.
Okay.
And I got a lot of information in my head.
Yeah.
And I know somehow I've created a 3-part series about Bette Davis and taken over our podcast.
Yes. And my month.
Unapologetically. I need people to know, and I'm very excited about this, the final frontier, the final part of the Bette Davis research.
That's what you wanted to say?
That's all. I just wanted to
cut me off.
I'm excited.
Okay. Well, we have announcements. We begin every episode. Okay. Listen, we did a recent poll for all of our listeners. Mm-hmm. And in that poll and in the surveys that went out there, a lot of people, we had a question about bonus episodes. What they would think about that, what they'd been interested in about that. And we just recorded one literally a minute ago. Mm-hmm. And that is going to go up live on our Patreon. And actually, by the time you hear this, it will have been up on our Patreon for about 4 days.
Probably already listened to it.
You might have already listened to it. It's called The Warm-Up. Basically, before every show starts, Mrs. P and I end up sitting in this room for about 20 minutes just trying to get ourselves into an agreeable enough persona, I want to say.
We have to stop talking in parent mode.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, hand me a wipe. Does anybody know where the sock is?
Listen, when you're dealing with a 7-month-old, you go when you become a parent of an infant. There is also like you become roommates for a little bit. There's been a little bit of hey, are we gonna do the dishes? I don't know. Are you gonna do the dishes? Is a lot of that, and so there is about 20 minutes of us like remembering that we like each other, and then also talking more about the more up to date things that are happening, because we record these episodes a few days in advance. And we haven't been talking about current events because I don't know if y'all notice, current events out here, they be curring.
They're crazy.
They be inventing.
We were trying to do a little bit of hot topics.
Yeah, a little bit of hot topics. It's more of just kind of like a quick flash one. This week, we talked about the new Democratic presumptive nominee and the oncoming Olympics, specifically men's rugby, which we watched a little bit of.
Thigh meat.
So if you want to hear that, you can go join our Patreon. It'll be available, and it's for all tiers. And we will have that out there, and we will find out a little bit more. It's a thing we're trying right now. So we want to let you guys know that exists. If you want to hear that, get an extra 20 minutes of Too Many Tabs, Pearlmania 500, Mrs. Pearlmania, all those things.
Yep.
Check out the warm-up. They'll be listed on our Patreon. Now, also, I just got back from San Diego.
Fun times out in San Diego.
Amazing time in San Diego. Thank you so much to all the fans.
Got a sunburn.
I did get a sunburn from walking down the highway with no sleeves on. It was a whole thing. But I did walk. San Diego's not walkable, but I discovered that the hotel I was staying at was only about 0.6 of a mile away from the comedy club. So I just decided to take a walk.
Yeah.
Because Joe Biden resigned and I had to think about it. So I took a walk and I found tortellini on the way.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing. But I had such a great time. Thank you to everybody who came out, to everybody who had me sign soup or a bookmark that said Tamlin is a bitch.
Yep.
Any of those things. The people who brought us merch that they made.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. That stuff is so cool.
Yeah, a lot of that. We did the photo line like always. We have a lot of ideas for things moving forward about everything else. The next show that's going to be on August 2nd, I'm going to be in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and then I'm going to the top of New Jersey, Jersey City, right outside of New York City, on September 14th. Link down in the show notes. Also Philly, St. Louis, Indianapolis, all of those are down there as well. We're working on an Arizona date, and I'm also working on another secret Texas date coming soon to be tied in with that.
Wow, that's a lot of stuff.
I just spit it all out.
What else?
That's it.
Oh, listen. No, that's not it. We have to also tell people that, okay, so again, I know I'm super excited. And like Bette Davis did take over this month.
Yes.
But do not worry. We are going to have a book club next week.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say that out loud.
A book club is coming.
Bette Davis accidentally steamrolled our whole podcast, just like she steamrolled everybody in Hollywood.
And her life. and her personal life, which we're going to get into the personal life
personal
this week.
life today. But so because of that, don't worry. Book club is coming. The next episode after this will be the book club for this month.
Yeah.
And we're excited about that as well.
We are. And so with that, I think, are we ready?
Yeah. And we're back.
We're here. We need a Dan.
Well, okay, I know we need a Dan.
We need a producer. I have so many buttons in front of me.
We
running
did have
audio.
to try that quite a few times.
On video. This is our fourth take on just this segment alone.
Listen, we are running this on Zip Ties and Hope.
Okay.
And we are doing it.
We're doing it live.
Yeah, you ready?
And by live, I mean heavily pre-recorded.
So let's do a quick recap before we jump back in.
Okay.
In the first episode about Bette Davis was her early life up until World War II, and we talked a lot about the Hollywood canteen.
Yeah, so it's her leaving Massachusetts and becoming a stage actress and then coming out here. So we call that one A New England Hope.
Okay. And then the second episode, I focused a lot on explaining her feud with Joan Crawford and whatever happened to Baby Jane.
Yes. Yeah. And that episode, following the Star Wars trilogy idea, is more like Crawford Strikes Back, since this is a 3-parter.
And then in this episode, we're going to do her later career and really dig deep into her relationship with her daughter. Yeah.
What's her daughter's name?
B.D. Hyman.
Okay. So this episode will be called Return of the Hyman.
Hate that, but okay.
Okay. I think,
Sure.
I feel like
Sure.
I'm sticking with the thought. Return of the Jedi.
Okay. So let's get started. We're in the 70s.
Okay.
1977.
Okay.
Late 70s, almost 80s, basically.
Okay.
Davis became the first woman to receive an American Film Institute's Lifetime Achievement Award.
Oh, AFI?
Let's
That sounds pretty
open
big deal.
it up. Let's open it up high.
Can I tell you, I used to love watching those in like the late 90s, early 2000s when they would give out those awards. They'd be like, here's one for like George Lucas, or like, here's one for these famous people. And it was like old Hollywood and new Hollywood coming together. Like, they were nice. I don't even know if they still do them because nobody has cable anymore, but...
Oh, also, I wanted to explain to you some deep lore.
Okay.
Spicy and unfounded. I couldn't find any like real proof of this, except for quotes from different people. But like it's very allegedly on this little bit of lore.
Well, let me hit the button.
Allegedly.
So we do need to go backwards a little bit.
We don't want to get sued.
Yeah, by the estate of Bette Davis. So back in 1950. Actually, it wouldn't be Davis, but back in 1950, Bette Davis had been given an option to do a women in prison drama called Caged.
Okay.
So it was a movie called Caged.
I'm going to throw out and just say I already don't like this.
Yeah.
Because those are very exploited. Like all those women in prison movies are very exploitative and weird. At least it's like there's a whole genre of Turkish prison women's movies that is odd.
Yeah. So Warner Brothers wanted to have it as a joint Davis Crawford movie, and this was in the 50s. This is way before.
Oh wow. Whatever happened to Baby Jane.
Whatever happened to Baby Jane. But Bette Davis refused to sign on opposite Crawford. She called the film, quote, I'm not going to actually read the quote, a D-slur for lesbian movie.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Which leads to another intriguing wrinkle in this feud, which is that Joan Crawford, who had relationships with both men and women throughout her life, was reported to and suspected by many in Hollywood to have actually harbored a huge crush on Bette Davis.
What?
Yes.
This whole thing? was coded the whole time?
I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
I get what? Wait, Joan had relationships with women?
I have a quote. Yeah, Joan did.
Okay.
So remember her husband that she stole from Bette Davis?
Yeah, the Frenchman.
Francochet? I don't remember how we were saying
Franchon.
Franchon. This is a quote from Crawford. Franchot isn't interested in Betty, but I wouldn't mind giving her a poke if I was in the right mood.
What?
Yep.
Where was this during the show?
Now, this is a quote from her friend and confidant, Jerry Asher. Apparently, she said afterwards, "Wouldn't that be funny?" Asher added that he was never sure whether Crawford was serious, but felt that she was, quote, attracted to Betty's vitality and energy.
Okay, that wouldn't that be funny is the most telling. Yeah, it's definitely gay. Oh, wouldn't it be funny if we just like, I don't know, had sex with each other? I'd be fucking, bro, let me tell you something right now, all right? I'm just saying that like the funniest joke in the world would be you,
Kissing me.
kissing, getting our genitals all mashed. Like, I'm just saying, like, what if we used enough friction on each other's body that both of us had an orgasm? That would be so funny, dude. We can't tell nobody, though. But that'd be so fucking funny if we just fucking, like, I don't know, like, made each other climax.
Okay. This has to go on YouTube.
What? I'm using this very specific language, all right? I didn't use any word. Okay.
Yeah, so there is this, thing that I read over and over again.
Yeah.
But it was all like from her friend of a friend who had said that, it was, people thought she had a crush on Bette Davis.
Yeah.
And that Bette Davis knew this and didn't like it. And that's very much why she's pushed away from this one film with her.
Because she's an old school New England Protestant.
Yeah.
And Joan Crawford was like, "This is California.
Just come on, loosen up."
I've been out to California a couple times now. People out there are chill.
They're chill.
You know where people aren't chill?
New
Boston.
England.
Yeah. You kidding me?
Not chill.
Boston people. I've met Boston people. I like them.
I don't want to drive on the same roads as them.
Absolutely the fuck not.
Do you not have turn signals on cars up there?
No, fuck that. Actually, from being in San Diego, so much worse.
Yeah.
San Diego, they get into your lane and then put the turn signal on. You're like, what the hell just happened?
What was the point of that?
I don't know. There's a lot of fighting.
I would hope that one day Audi installs turn signals in their cars, is all I'm saying. So in 1977, Joan Crawford dies. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Joan Crawford.
Davis is often quoted as having said the following when been informed of the news. Mm-hmm. Quote, "You should never say bad things about the dead. You should only say good. Joan Crawford is dead. Good."
Damn. Yeah, the way in Feud, Susan Sarandon does that moment.
Yeah.
Because they like the phone rings and the reporter tells her and she like just fires that off. I don't think it was that quick.
Yeah.
But like the way Susan Sarandon delivers it in the movie.
Yeah.
Mwah, good movie.
Incredible. You started screaming like a girl when you heard that line.
Well, the delivery was so bad. Joan Crawford is dead. Good. Like it's just so.
So Bette Davis starts filming a movie called The Disappearance of Amy, which around this time anyway, she starts filming this movie called The Disappearance of Amy, which also starred Fay Dunaway. Okay. This film would cement Davis in not another feud, but what I would describe as full-blown hate. Okay, so like she had a feud with Joan Crawford.
Yeah.
They had a back and forth over decades.
Yeah, those were two equals.
Yeah. She hates Fay Dunaway to her grave.
Oh.
And so Fay Dunaway apparently was trying to big shot everybody on the set of this movie.
Yeah.
And was always showing up late on set, causing hours and hours of delays and waiting around and all this stuff. So like you have to remember, Bette Davis is a consummate professional who's been in the film industry for 40 fucking years.
Yeah. Who also respects the unions.
Yeah.
And all of the other people. Like she's like, this is a job. We're here to do work.
She knows every union.
Yeah.
She was the person in charge of like, okay, like she takes it very seriously.
Yes.
And so this unprofessional behavior, like this isn't a feud, this is a grudge. Like she hates Fay Dunaway.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting that she starts filming this movie and like with the passing of
Joan Crawford dies.
Another must rise.
Yeah, the hate is
The hate
she
has
has
been
a hate,
redirected.
She has a hate laser,
Yeah.
and it hits Fay Dunaway, who's like young.
Yeah, she's young.
Yeah, I think she's like under 30.
Yeah.
And so it's like she has no idea what
Yeah.
she's in for.
Exactly.
Which must, honestly, when Fay Dunaway and Warren Beatty pulled out the wrong name for the Oscars,
Yep.
Bette Davis must have been cackling.
Yeah.
That was Moonlight, and what was the other movie? Moonlight's the one who won.
Yeah.
But they said that other movie, the LA dancing movie with Ryan Gosling.
Oh, right.
I can't remember what it's called.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what? Maybe that'll be the secret word this week. We forgot to do a secret word last week.
Yeah, it was a rough week last week.
But no, I think that yeah.
Okay,
It's-
so Davis decided after this movie she was going to make the leap into television. So not a lot of film stars from her generation or people that were doing what she was doing were going to TV.
Yeah.
It was like very much seen as lesser than.
Yeah.
Very much what our movie stars used to think about Netflix. Like
Yeah.
they didn't want to jump it. Oh, streaming.
Well, now it's what they think of as of influencers.
Yeah.
It would be like a Netflix or television star thinking of influencers.
Yeah, they're like, I'm not going to do YouTube.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
you better go eat everything at Cheesecake Factory with Keith.
Yeah, you better get the fuck
better
out
get some
there.
Views.
Yeah. Yo, you want to still have a career? Have you heard of a Try Guy? Because we're down 2.
So she gets in the TV.
Yeah.
And basically immediately wins an Emmy Award for a
course
show
she
called
does.
The Strangers.
Of course.
In 1979.
Yeah.
So like as soon as she gets into TV, she immediately is the best at it.
Yeah.
It's like, yep, for sure.
Did she name them Emmys? I don't know.
No, no.
I wouldn't be shocked if that is.
So in 1978, a book titled Mommy Dearest is released. It is a damning memoir by Joan Crawford's adopted daughter, Christina,
Yeah.
that chronicled the abuse she suffered at the hands of her mother.
Yeah.
This is a quote from Bette Davis. I was not Mrs. Crawford's biggest fan, but wisecracks to the contrary, I did and still do respect her talent. What she did not deserve was that detestable book written by her daughter. To do something like that to someone who saved you from the orphanage, foster homes, and who knows what, if she didn't like the person who chose to be her mother, she was grown up and could choose her own life. End quote.
Okay, but
So,
okay. To the listeners who don't understand, Mommy Dearest lists a litany of alcoholism,
Yep.
Mental and physical abuse.
Yep.
The most famous, which is because it was later made into a movie.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Joan Crawford is alleged to have found wire hangers like from a dry cleaner, and she doesn't want wire hangers. And she's hammered.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't want wire hangers. There need to be wooden hangers. We only use wooden hangers. And she opens up the wire hanger and she whips her daughter with it while
Yeah.
screaming, "No wire hangers."
Yeah.
And it's just no wire hangers. And it is a reference, I think, on SNL and other comedy, like got played for laughs, but today, like, it is child abuse. It's literal child abuse.
Yeah.
And it's the listing of all this stuff happening to her. So yeah, this is
Yeah, so the book is deeply troubling, and
Yes.
it really goes into a lot of, and the thing is like,
it's not shit you would make up.
You
and
wouldn't
it
make it
wasn't
up.
it also shit that wasn't acceptable to even be mentioned was happening
Yeah.
to you back then.
Exactly.
Like the fact that this is put out, it's about Joan Crawford, and so it's salacious because it's Hollywood and old Hollywood especially.
Yeah.
It also wasn't, it was like that, like was it Go Ask Alice or what?
Yeah.
These type of books are beginning to first come out and are beginning to start talking in the late 70s, early 80s about what's happening with the abuse of children, but it wasn't normalized yet.
Yeah.
We didn't have the talk shows or all these other different things, or
Yeah.
people quote trauma dumping or any of this stuff. Like therapy culture wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah.
Any of these things.
and also I'm not ever going to say that Bette Davis is a perfect human. She had a lot of trouble,
Yes.
some ideas, opinions, and thoughts and things she said for sure. And this is one of those ones where it's like, she very like the idea of like you were adopted, you should be so lucky.
Yeah, not
is
you
fucked up.
Yeah, you were grateful for being saved is a horrific statement.
Yeah, that's I was like as I was reading it, I was like, no, oh no, this is terrible.
Yeah.
So Davis goes on to say, quote, she felt very sorry for Joan Crawford, but this is her quote, I felt very sorry for Joan Crawford, but I knew she wouldn't appreciate my pity because that's the last thing she would have wanted. Anyone being sorry for her, especially me. I can understand how hurt Miss Crawford had to be. Well, no, I can't. It's like trying to imagine how I would feel if my own beloved, wonderful daughter, BD, were to write a bad book about me. Mm-hmm. It's unimaginable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in 1979, Bette Davis hires a personal assistant to help her named Catherine Cermak. Catherine... or Kath, would go on to become one of her dearest friends and confidant for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Right? And at the time, BD, her daughter, I told you she married that 30-year-old guy when she was 16.
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
And they decide they're going to get a farm in Pennsylvania. And they move to a farm in Pennsylvania. With her, she moves with her old ass husband.
No, listen, get yourself a Pennsylvania farm.
And they have children. They have 2 kids, I think, 2 boys.
Okay.
And they start to live what we would now in Instagram influencer culture call like the off the grid lifestyle.
Trad stuff.
They're tradding it up down there.
Yeah.
So in 1981, as you stated,
it's also 1980. It's 1980 on the dot in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
The middle of fucking nowhere. Like today, if I go there, it's still 1980 in some of these spots where you could have a farm in Pennsylvania where you like show up like, no. What does the kid want? A Nintendo? We got a ColecoVision. I'm like, he was asking for a Nintendo Switch. There's a Pac-Man machine down at the pizzeria.
Oh, not when there's all these goats to milk or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, fuck, we have Amish people here.
Yeah, listen.
Like, listen, we could do 1880s.
Episode on all that. So in 1981, Mommy Dearest, the Joan Crawford book, is turned into a movie, like we're saying.
Yeah, which I saw actually as a kid. It used to play like randomly on like HBO and shit like that.
Yeah.
I remember the no wire hanger scene and a few other things. But that's actually like that was my introduction to Joan Crawford.
Yeah, but the only reason I wrote this down because again, this is not a Joan Crawford podcast.
No,
this
I know.
is a Bette Davis podcast.
Yeah,
that Fay Dunaway played Joan Crawford in that movie. Mm-hmm. So also this movie is a very campy flop.
Yeah.
Like this does not go well.
That's why it ran on TV so much, was to make the money back.
Exactly.
But yeah, it is. It's crazy.
It's often considered one of the worst films ever made.
Yeah.
And was nominated for 9 Razzies at the second Golden Raspberry Awards, and it won 5, including Worst Picture and Worst Actress for Fay Dunaway.
Good for her.
So I just a little touch for Bette Davis hating fucking Fay Dunaway.
You know, the only person I think for a long time, the only person to ever actually accept their Razzie in person was Halle Berry for Catwoman.
Yeah.
Because she came out and she was like, you hate me. You really hate me. And they're like, yeah, just like fucking, she leaned in.
Yeah, she was like, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I saw her in Hot Ones and I was like, man, she's strong.
Halle Berry's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. 1981.
Yep.
So, we're in the 80s, 81.
Yeah,
Bette Davis' name becomes well known again. There's a huge resurgence of Bette Davis in 1981.
Yep.
Because a big song from Kim Carnes comes out called Bette Davis Eyes, written by Donna Weiss and Jackie DeShannon.
Yep.
And it becomes a worldwide hit, best-selling record, gold, platinum, all of it.
Yep.
It stayed number 1 on the music charts for more than 2 months. Everywhere, all the time, people are singing Bette Davis Eyes.
She got Bette Davis Eyes.
Bette Davis loved the song.
Of course she does. It's a fucking... All right, hold on. Time out. First, the song's a banger.
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
It's a banger. The video is pretty good for like early 80s videos. Mm-hmm. It's in our mix. Like it's in a bunch of our mixes. It's also... YouTube recommends it to me a lot right now because we've been doing so much Bette Davis stuff. But also, I knew early on when we first started dating that you really like the song.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, what's that video? I was like, I went and go listen to it a couple times. And yeah, it was huge.
Big deal.
And it's also been used in a lot of movies. And it's actually ended up being one of those songs in the modern era, more modernly, that people use to say it's the 80s.
Yeah, exactly.
They play Bette Davis Eyes is a quintessential 80s music video.
Wait, listen, this is off subject, but still on subject. I don't know if anybody saw Maxine in the movie theaters, the horror movie Maxine. Incredible.
Yeah.
And they use The 80s is so perfectly. When you're watching that movie in the theater, it feels like the 80s. It is. They do it so well. And people had been messaging me on the Instagram about how they were hearing the Bette Davis song. I was like, I was squealing
because you saw it live. You went, I mean, not live. You saw it in theaters.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You went with a friend of yours.
You're watching the baby. I'm going to see Maxine.
Yeah, and I was like, okay.
It's like I'm leaving the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is. It is the quintessential 80s song it's one of them for sure.
Yeah.
But Bette Davis loved it. She considered it a high honor and a compliment.
Yeah.
She hand wrote letters to Kim Carnes, Donna Weiss, the writer, and Jackie DeShannon, to the songwriter. She wrote all three of them letters thanking them. And in return, they sent her the gold and platinum records, which she hung in her house.
Oh, they gave her their own copy. Oh, that's awesome.
Because she loved it so much, and she was so appreciative. At the same time, Bette Davis starts writing a book called This and That, which is so her. This and That. Like,
okay.
I have the book here. I read it. And This and That is the best way to describe it. Because she speaks the same way you and I speak and think, where we're going everywhere. She starts talking about one thing and then we're all the way over here a second ago.
Yeah.
She would have loved Too Many Tabs. Okay. That's like what I could tell you.
What you're saying is she would have been a good podcaster.
Yeah, exactly. Because she just starts talking and then segues out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Now, in 1983, she's filming a pilot episode of a television series called Hotel. And she finds out she's been diagnosed with breast cancer. And she undergoes a mastectomy. And within 2 weeks of her surgery, she has 4 strokes, which cause paralysis on her left side of her face and her left arm, and left her with slurred speech. And she begins a lengthy period of physical therapy and is aided by her personal assistant, Catherine.
Oh, who's right here in the back of the book? I just turned the book
that's
over.
Kath. And she did get partial recovery from the paralysis. Mm-hmm. I need you to know that in the books I've read, especially This and That, she talks a lot about the recovery. And in the book Kath wrote, Me and Mrs. D, I read, she talks a lot about the recovery because they spent so much time in hospitals together, so much medical treatment, all this stuff. And through all of it, through getting through the mastectomy, through the 4 strokes, all of this, she is still smoking 100 cigarettes per day.
Of course.
She never stopped smoking the cigarettes.
I think there was one where somebody was talking about, who was it? Jerry Garcia.
Yeah.
Right? Jerry Garcia, when he died, he did heroin for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And when he stopped, he was older and all these different things, and he stopped and then he died.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody being like, yeah, man, you can't just stop breathing. I was like, what? And it's like, because with some of these addictions, when you've been this addicted for this long, it actually would be a shock to the system.
I know.
And it's that same sort of thing where there is a certain thing where people are this old where it's like, listen, if they stop, they'll have from quitting smoking myself, going through the panic attacks, going through all of that, having my heart race, all those things. I can only imagine if I already had 4 strokes, a mastectomy, all these other different issues. I'm however many years old in this frail little body. And then I quit smoking on top of that. No, just keep it going.
They were like, get her another cigarette.
Yeah. And this is, by the way, this is still the 80s. You could still smoke in the hospital.
Yeah,
the doctors were smoking in the hospital. They had I think they were starting to get down to certain wings because they had oxygen tanks. You can't smoke in this wing.
Yeah, it's the reverse. Instead of a smoking room, it was there's the non-smoking.
Yeah, there was a non-smoking. This is the non-smoking hallway.
Yeah,
well, it's the 4th floor. You have to walk past all the smokers.
In 1983, Davis received a Distinguished Civilian Service Medal, which is the highest medal you can receive from the Department of Defense for her work in the Hollywood Canteen.
Oh, okay.
So she gets an award from the military for her service.
What this is them being like, she's almost out of here, so we gotta get her good press right now. We gotta get our good press right now. We get a picture of her holding it while she's alive.
Yeah,
it's a good idea.
Exactly. No, but after somehow accidentally falling into this Hollywood canteen information. I understand why they
No,
would,
listen, no,
obviously.
I agree with that. I think she should have gotten it in 1946.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. It's like them.
She
like,
was busy making a movie for the women.
I know.
Okay.
What I'm saying though is like is one of the reasons is they, as the news probably came out of Bette Davis just had multiple strokes and she's on the all these different things. There's a thing that happens much like with Jimmy Carter right now. He's 99. Every time we think it's the last day, everyone steps. Oh man, what he did is so amazing. He's still here. Oh fuck.
Yeah, no, he's doing it.
Because everyone wants to get the cash in right before.
So let's just say this for the next portion of this story I'm telling you, right? This is very much pulled from the books. So like a lot of what I've gone through in the last two and now two and a half episodes has been like timelined perfectly, and I was able to really like fact check dates and timelines and things like that. This portion is really pulled from the dialogue of the books.
Okay.
Right? So this is the different perspectives.
Okay.
From Kath, Betty, and BD, right? We're going to start to get into like me really discussing with you what they're saying happened.
Okay. Do we want to take a break before we start that?
We can totally take a break.
Okay, let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll get into these perspectives.
Perspectives.
Opinions. Here we are.
Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so Kath, remember the assistant,
Yes.
gets a call from Bette Davis's friend and lawyer, Harold. Okay. There's a lot of backstory about Harold, but just know he is Betty's friend and a lawyer.
Okay.
Her lawyer as well. And he says to Kath that BD is writing and releasing a book about Betty. And they set up, the two of them set up a phone call with BD to get more information without telling Bet. Okay?
Okay, so Betty doesn't know.
Betty doesn't know.
Kath and the lawyer are calling BD.
Harold called Kath and said, Kath,
we got to work this out.
Things. I found out something on the, we got to talk about it. So they do a 3-way call with BD. And during that call, BD makes it clear that she is writing a book about her mother. And Kath is like, that's fine. Again, Kath is like, in this part of the scenario, looking at it very like, not like it's a bad thing. She's like, that's cool. Why don't you want to send it over to her to read? Like, she'll be so excited for you. Yeah. Right? She'll be like,
you're doing something.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Do you want her to read it for you? Like, do you want me to, I'll make sure she gets it. Like, blah, blah. And, she's like, she'd probably love to read it. She'd love to edit it, moms. Yeah. And BD says no, but I'm sure she's going to love it. That's why I'm releasing it as a surprise on Mother's Day.
On Mother's Day? Mm-hmm. I'm writing a book about my mom. I'm releasing it on Mother's Day. Yeah.
Now, Betty is heading to London because she's going to film an Agatha Christie murder mystery movie called Murder with Mirrors. It actually has, who is the little detective lady in the trench coat? Fuck.
What? No. Angela Lansbury?
Yes, Angela Lansbury. Okay. She was in a show with Angela Lansbury.
Okay. An Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So she asked...
The little detective lady.
You got it, though.
This Our is why brains used to work. But you could have gone with Teacup, the teapot from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, right. Right. No. Murder She Wrote is way more important in my life than Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
Betty asked Kath, hey, can you call BD and see if she wants to come to dinner before we leave to go to London? Mm-hmm. And so from Pennsylvania. So BD comes to visit, and BD says to her mom that she brought her a farewell gift. Yeah. Which is a Bible. She brings her a Bible to her mom. Okay. Now, again, Bette Davis is not religious. I have not talked about religion this whole time. Yeah. That is not part of her story, really. She is not something she really engages in, right? So BD and Jeremy had recently become born-again Christians.
Oh, they're not fun. They are doing the trad cat.
And so she had brought the Bibles and other religious pamphlets. And she starts proselytizing to her mom about her sinful life, her awful past, and how she needs to repent and be saved.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay.
They
were just supposed to go out to dinner before she goes to London.
Yeah, this is supposed to be a nice meal.
So I'm like, oh, we're just meeting to have a nice dinner. And based on Kath's account, Betty wasn't reactionary. Like, she didn't get mad or upset. She was just like really confused. Okay. And so afterwards, Kath noted that it's interesting that she would discuss her mother's sins so openly while she was breaking the 5th commandment of honoring thy father and thy mother by hiding this book from her.
Oh, that's because she never mentioned the book.
No, never.
Okay.
And Kath didn't bring it up either. Okay. So
Okay.
Kath and Harold have decided to, I guess, not talk about it.
Not even mention it to
Not
Betty.
mention it to Betty. Because, again, she's still recovering.
Yeah.
She's still frail and
Yeah.
not in good health. And so they're just trying to be like, she wants to work.
She's teeny tiny.
Yeah.
She's
teeny tiny.
real little.
She's a little tiny.
And I've seen, I in the last couple of weeks, I saw a random Johnny Carson interview with Bette Davis was going on there all the time. And
Yeah.
they loved having her on there because she
Yeah.
would just get, Ronald Reagan is a piece of shit. And she's just, I'm old and frail. And
What are you going to do?
And she looks, this is like post-stroke, like
Yeah.
later, it's like she looks so scared. Like she
Yeah.
looks like a strong wind will kill her.
Yeah. And so Kath and Harold, I believe, are really trying to save her emotional strength.
Yeah.
So that she can go do her work. Because, again, Bette Davis loves working. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like they're like, oh, we want you to work so
She
we can
doesn't
make
need the
money
money.
off of you.
She doesn't need the money.
It's not even like that. It's like, we just know this brings her joy.
Yeah. And it's probably the few things that are keeping her alive is her working.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the next day, Betty asked Kath to call BD and let her know they had arrived safely in London. But the call didn't go through.
Okay.
They called again and again, and the number had been disconnected. After a few hours of having no way to get in touch, Betty becomes nervous. And so she calls the police department in the town where BD lives in Pennsylvania and asks them to go do a wellness check. When the deputies drove to the property, they found it vacant with a large for sale sign on the front of the lot.
Okay, that's some weirdo shit. That's fucking weirdo shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, again, she said a goodbye present. And, like, Betty probably was like, oh, because I'm going to London. A goodbye present.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I wasn't
no.
thinking of like,
we're leaving in the middle of the night, right? Weird, crazy
this is cult
stuff.
shit.
So Betty begins to panic. Where
Yeah.
are they? Why didn't they tell anyone they were leaving? Like, this is, again, Bette Davis and BD, from all accounts, they have a tight relationship. For all the books that I read, like, they have a close relationship. It's not perfect, for sure. Again, Bette Davis is potentially an alcoholic. She's a workaholic.
Yeah.
She's a tough fucking cookie who needs to have everything perfect in her life.
Yeah.
And she will call every single mistake out
Yeah.
like on the dime.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying she's an easy person.
Yeah.
But everything that I've read so far is that they were very tight as like mother-daughter. And this would be very out of the ordinary of like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you where I'm going.
It's also terrifying. Yeah. Not only I'm not telling you where I'm going. It's not like we're going to Norway for a week or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we went on vacation. We just didn't want to be bothered, so we didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
This is, they disconnected their phone and sold their house.
It took the grandkids.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
they're vanished. Like, this is like cult shit.
Yeah. So Harold ended up hiring a private detective who found BD and Jeremy in the Bahamas.
Okay.
And Harold called them and demanded that BD call her mother, right?
Yeah.
So BD calls her, and when they get on the phone, she acts as though this is not weird and that this is not crazy, that it's crazy that Betty's upset.
Yeah.
Very like, we just I just didn't want to interrupt you. You're going through so much right now. Like, it's not that big a deal. Why are you acting like you're so crazy?
Okay.
Right? So, like, fully gaslighting her about how weird this fucking shit is.
Yeah.
To just pick up and move to the Bahamas.
But why the Bahamas?
I don't know. I couldn't figure out why they were going to the Bahamas.
I thought you were gonna be like, because there's a preacher there. Because this feels.
It feels that.
It feels that.
It's, yeah. So upon her return to America from Bette Davis, her return to America after filming the thing with Angela Lansbury in London, she is notified that her daughter BD has published a book called My Mother's Keeper.
which you have right here.
I do have it right here.
This is the book. Well, I'm holding it up on the camera.
My Mother's Keeper
And there's
by
a picture.
B.D. Hyman.
And there's a picture of B.D. and Betty.
Upon
on the front.
her, so several of Davis's. So this book comes out and it's hot news, right?
Yeah.
This is like you were saying about the Joan Crawford book.
Yeah.
This is like everybody's talking about it. It's full of the hot gossip, and people are like stunned that this has come out. So it's on all over the news. However, several of Bette Davis's friends come out and say that the depiction of events is not accurate. So people are like going to newspapers, going on television. Mike Wallace from 60 Minutes rebroadcast an episode of 60 Minutes interview where he was talking to B.D. Hyman from a few years prior, where she was complimenting Davis on her skills as a mother and said that she herself had adopted many of Davis's principles in raising her own children. Yeah. So Mike Wallace was like, what the fuck did you say about Bette Davis? And he rebroadcast this episode to be like, what you just said over here, she was a great mom, and then you're being like her. A lot of people come out and say like, this is not correct. But again, like there's always two sides to a story. So like, we don't know, these are outsiders, right? Talking about the inside. However, some of the critics also noted that Davis financially supported Hyman, and up until the point of the Pennsylvania farm, they almost lost the farm because of Jeremy's bad finance and money management. Okay. And Bette Davis paid for them to not lose it. So again, even if they were selling that farm, that should be in her fucking name. Like, you can't sell something that's not yours. But I think she let them keep it in her name. She just paid off the debt. Yeah. So she had been financially supporting her daughter the entire time, even through the marriage. If she wants a new horse, she gets a new horse from her mom. She wants this, she gets that. Like, it's very much, so people were calling that out and being like, actually, we know for a fact that your mom's been financially supporting you this whole time.
What is she alleging in the book?
So she alleges it's not like Mommy Dearest. It's not as physically abusive. There's definitely emotionally, mentally abusive behavior. There is some violence because she's talking about her being drunk and fighting with her dad and this domestic violence element. But also it's like, I don't know. Obviously I'm not going to pick a side. People's experiences, their experiences. What I can say about reading the book is that, number one, it is a poorly written book. Okay. I was so hard to read because the way she writes is very like, and then my mom said this, and then I said that, and then she said this, and then I said that.
So I just opened it up. Yeah. And it's pretty clear that this was ghost written from a tape recorder. Like there's a lot of ellipses. Yep. Like in this one, I don't even know what this sentence is about, but it says it had been a dozen years since she had last tried it on me, but I wasn't going to break my vow. I hadn't then ... I wouldn't now. The only thing she had forgotten was the empty pill bottle ... She had always left one outside her bedroom door. And it's just like, there's just so many, like as I'm rolling through this, there's just so many ellipses on every page. So it's pretty clear that she probably sat in front of a tape recorder with a little microphone and like did that. And then they just pumped it out. Yeah. And so the other, not that she's an untrustworthy narrator, that's not what I'm saying. Yeah. But it's really hard to, not that you need to like her character or like her as a person because what she's talking about, but it's like, it's almost impossible to like, you're just like, it was so hard to read. I can't even like, and it was so hard to like frame around her because again she's talking about it and she's like the mansion she grew up in, she wanted for nothing, and she has the horse and the best education and the private schools and blah, blah. And so when you hear her like specifically complain about those details, you're like, what are you complaining about like that? But then when you hear about like, yes, her mom is neurotic, workaholic, alcoholic, like that's really stressful. I absolutely understand why that would be, but also like it doesn't feel authentic. Like, I don't know. There's just something about it that I really didn't. Well, and there's also like some of the stuff in here, like as I'm just kind of like flipping through, like she's mentioning like her adopted sister who had to go to the facility and all those different things. Like some of that stuff just comes like probably isn't very public knowledge. Yeah. So again, people are like, oh, I'm thinking I'm going to read because they think that this is going to be Mommy Dearest too.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's also kind of playing into it of, hey, this happened to Joan. Wouldn't it be funny if it happens to their feud partner?
So I think that's the one of the things is that like it reads that way too, for sure. And I think, again, this is alleged, years out,
Yeah.
decades out, really. I think it's a cash grab. I think that she got that money. She went to the Bahamas. She knew what she was doing. And at the same time, to sit around and proselytize that your mom needs to repent for sin and then release this book, take the money and go to the Bahamas is wild. Again, that's just a theory. I can't prove that's what happened.
So I just looked up one thing. William Morrow and Company is the publisher.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? Is this the publisher even still exists? And it does. In 1960, it was founded by William Morrow. In 1967, it was acquired by a man named Scott Forsman. And it was sold to the Hearst Corporation in 1981. And then Hearst sold it to News Corp in 1999. So this is like William Randolph Hearst and the Hearst Corporation, like yellow journalism. Like that's exactly what this is in like a really weird way. And again, we're not saying that anything that's alleged here, it didn't happen.
No.
But the salacious nature of it was being pumped up by people in the Hearst Corporation. Like, again, to make, because they know how to sell.
Yeah. Also, the title, My Mother's Keeper, is like...
Well, it's My Brother's Keeper, it's the saying, and they just flipped it. They want to get the mommy
They wanted
name.
to get the mommy thing, but like also in it, and never is she like taking... It doesn't, like, she's never really taking care of her mother. You know what I mean? Like, Bette Davis isn't the kind of mother that needs a lot of care, I guess.
I think the implication is kind of like the David Hasselhoff drunk on the top of the steps eating the burger.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, when mommy's hammered, I have to take care of her.
Exactly. It's that, for sure. So...
But like, if I was them on one of these pictures, I would have at least had one picture on the cover of Bette Davis holding a glass of something.
Yeah.
If my whole thing is Bette Davis is an alcoholic, instead of just showing the pictures of her with the baby and all this different stuff, like, I don't know. Yeah. I would have had a picture of Betty somewhere with a glass of wine or a bottle of gin.
Okay.
Or an empty cupboard full of empty scotch bottles from her hit movie, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
So I feel like she saw the success of Joan Crawford's daughter, Christine, and wanted to try to cash in. Yeah. And not to take away from anything that happened, allegedly.
We're going to hit an allegedly on that.
But I don't know. It was a hard read is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. She closes the book. In the end of the book, she writes a letter to her mother.
B.D. Hyman does.
B.D. Hyman. Okay. She writes a letter to Bette Davis. And basically it says, here's a quote from it. I am bringing this fight to your doorstep. This is me reaching out to you. That's a quote. And I'm like, you could have reached out to her a million times over.
Yeah.
You don't need to mail her a letter on the end of a book where you air all of your dirty laundry in the weirdest written way ever. So like, I don't know, like, to me, it feels like there are other ways to go about this, but like, listen, everybody has to process what happened to them their own way, but the end of the book letter to her mother being
I opened it up. It's page 347 in the book, epilogue. And this is I'm just going to read just the first little start. Mm-hmm. So here it is, mother, the story of you and me, not as you would have it be, but as it really was. You wanted me to be like you, a fighter, but I never wanted to fight. Fighting and grand drama have brought you some kind of satisfaction. I hesitate to say happiness, but they bring me misery. Love and laughter have brought me happiness, but they bore you to tears. I let you have your way and tried to understand you for all those years because, for the most part, I loved and respected you. My husband clenched his teeth and stayed out of the way most of the time because he loved me and understood my dilemma. He also liked the real you, the Ruth Elizabeth you seldom exposed to any of us. It just keeps going. It's like they...
And like, I get that. The beginning part of that, I understand what she's saying about like how her mother wanted her to be a fighter. And like, it's clear in the story that like her mother was trying to toughen her up her whole life because her mother had to be tough. Her mother is coming from experience and a generation coming through fucking Hollywood at that age. She had to be tough as nails, and she's trying to teach her daughter to be tough. And it was probably painful.
You know what kind of reminds me of too? It reminds me of the story and like the view of the two of like a first versus second generation immigrant family.
Yeah.
Because you have the one who has to strive. I had to flee someplace or whatever, and come across, immigrate to this country.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to hold on to our culture, or I'm still trying to do this. I'm trying to teach you everything I learned. And then this person's like, well, it's not 1928 anymore.
Yeah, and I want to just do art and have fun.
I want to do art, and I just want to have my horses. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, but like, we have to work harder than that to get these things. It's like, well, you did. Yeah, I don't have to. It's like kind of what she's saying at the very beginning of that.
Very much. So it's a hard situation. And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's really weird to write a podcast episode about parental abuse in this perspective. So like, I don't know how to I don't know the right way to discuss this. So
Yeah.
it's very like I'm trying to tiptoe through the tulips, if you will.
Yeah, I got you. I understand what you mean. It is a weird one. I knew about this book. I thought it was going to be more like the Crawford book.
No.
But you're saying it's nowhere near.
It's similar.
It's similar.
but not at the same level.
Same level of abuse.
Yeah, you wouldn't make a movie with
Yeah.
Fay Dunaway. So many people come out of the woodwork in defense of Bette Davis.
Yeah.
Which, to note, not many people came out of the woodwork for Joan Crawford.
Yeah.
It's just, again, Bette Davis is still alive. Christine waited till Joan Crawford passed away.
Yeah, she waited till a year later.
She was like, I'll wait till she passed away. Despite the messiness of their divorce, Davis's ex-husband, Gary Merrill, also defended Davis and was interviewed by CNN. Gary said that Hyman was motivated by, quote, cruelty and greed. Davis's adopted son, Michael, permanently broke ties with BD and refused to speak to her ever again. So everyone in the family cut off BD after this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In 1987, Bette Davis releases her second memoir, This and That, the book she had started working on in the 70s.
Gotcha.
Because she had started writing it, and then after this came out, she basically scraps it and rewrites it.
Gotcha.
Especially the ending. Go ahead.
So you said it's the second one.
Yeah,
the
that's
first,
her
this
first
is
one.
This is Mother Goddamn.
Mother Goddamn is the first one.
Okay, gotcha.
I pulled a lot of information for that for the first episode.
Yeah.
It just, that one is very like, she writes in a style of like, this is what's happening.
Well, this one is Whitney Stein with Bette Davis.
Yeah, she had help.
And then this one is Bette Davis with Michael Herskowitz. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
she always has a little someone to organize
well,
her thoughts.
yeah, well, I mean, it's
Because
definitely
she's just smoking and talking.
Yeah.
It's like you can tell by reading that book. Just like this one, you can tell someone's like recording.
Yeah.
You can tell someone she's just telling a story and someone's writing it down.
Yeah, but they hired a better ghostwriter,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
the one whose name is actually on the book.
Yeah.
So
So in the foreword of this book, This and That, this is a quote. This is the opening of the book. I am still recovering from the fact that a child of mine would write about me behind my back, to say nothing about the kind of book it is. I will never recover as completely from BD's book as I have from The Stroke. Both were shattering experiences.
wow.
Yeah. I also like to say nothing about the kind of book it is, because again, it's not a good book.
Yeah.
So she's even been like, at least write a good book.
Yeah.
It's like she's so savage, even in like this moment, just being like,
Yeah.
It's still not a good book. It's not entertaining. Like for Bette Davis, she's like, be entertaining.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Oh my God. Awful thing to say. At the end of the book, at the end of This and That, she posts letters from her friends in the book calling out BD. And one of the letters is from Mia Farrow, talking about how when Mia Farrow was young, Bette Davis took her and BD out to like, I don't know, Six Flags or something like that. But so I just think it's interesting that they're talking to each other through these books. Like they're writing letters to each other through these books, because that's the way they're going to handle the situation now. This is so Facebook coded of like, we're airing our laundry on Facebook. But yeah, there's multiple letters.
Okay, but hold on. Can I read that? So it closes, the official part of the book closes with a letter to B.D. Hyman.
Yeah. Oh, I have that.
You have that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it goes into the afterward with the other ones. Can I read the beginning, or do you want to read it?
She writes a letter to BD at the end of the book, which was her. I have the very last line written down.
I think we should read the beginning, because it's
Go ahead, read it.
Because the Mother's Keeper, when I read it was direct, and it didn't have a Dear Mom or anything.
Yeah.
It says, Dear Hyman, which is incredible.
Yeah.
She's not calling her BD.
No.
Dear Hyman. Not even Miss Hyman, not Mrs. Hyman. Dear Hyman, you ended your book with a letter to me. I have decided to do the same. There is no doubt you have a great potential as a writer of fiction. You have always been a great storyteller. I have often, lo these many years, said to you, BD, that is not the way it was. You are imagining things. Which, Jesus Christ. Like, many of the scenes in your book I have played on the screen. It could be you have confused the me on the screen with the me who is your mother. And then you get to the very end, which I think you're going to read right
I have
here.
the one quote I have is a glaring lack of loyalty and thanks for the very privileged life I feel that you have been given is the very last line. And then there's a PS. PS. I hope someday I will understand the title, My Mother's Keeper. If it refers to money, if my memory serves me right, I have been your keeper all these many years. I am continuing to do so, as my name has made your book about me a success.
Yeah, that's the PS, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But before that, actually, more importantly,
Yeah.
she signs it Ruth Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Because in Mother's Keeper, at that ending, as we were flipping through it,
Yeah.
she kept saying who's Bette Davis versus who's Ruth Elizabeth. So she's
Yeah.
like, here I am.
Ruth Elizabeth.
Yeah. It says, as you ended your letter in My Mother's Keeper, it's up to you now, Ruth Elizabeth. I am ending my letter to you the same way. It's up to you now, Hyman. Like, it's very fucking...
Yeah.
Like, she goes through all these different things. This part is from this movie. This part is from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dear Betty, this is from Mia Farrow. Dear Betty, when I was a little girl living in Madrid for the filming of John Paul Jones, you took me along with BD to Toledo for the day. I've never forgotten your generosity and kindness to me. Now, if any one of my kids, I now have 8, were to list just some of my shortcomings as only they could, it would fill a shelf of books. I know how heartbroken and outraged you must feel. I'm positive every parent who hears anything about this will feel outraged too and profound sympathy. Mia Farrow,
Yeah.
who famously, the whole Woody Allen
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so much to
Sun
unpack.
Yi shit. I know. Like, that's
It's
what I'm going through.
Crazy.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw it was a letter from Mia Farrow, I was like, oh no.
Yeah. There's a few of these are just letters to editors from just different random people.
Ronan Farrow, handsome man.
Yeah. But all these different things.
Doesn't look a sliver like his father.
Yeah. This one is by Ed Baker from the Seattle Times. It ends with epilogue to review. Shut up, BD.
It's just, yeah. So,
That's the last line of the book.
I know.
The very last line, the very last page 207. Epilogue to My Mother's Keeper. B.D. Hyman gives Bette Davis a final chance to shape up to become the kind of mother and grandmother Hyman wants her to be. Epilogue to review. Shut up, B.D. Like, that's a choice.
it's crazy.
That was a choice that this woman, look at that face if you're looking on the YouTube. It's fucking.
She's mad.
She's
And Kath
mad.
is just smiling. Kath is just... Also, I need you to know that when she found out about the book, she lost her shit on Kath.
Yeah.
Because, like, she was like, you knew about this? You knew. You and Harold knew? And then she like, didn't even talk to Kath for, like, days. She was so mad at her for keeping it a secret. But she forgave her because they're, like, besties. Anyway,
Yeah.
there's...
But as you were describing it, I mean, it is a shocking thing.
Yeah.
From Kath's perspective, to be like, oh, yeah, no, you're writing a book of your mom. Do you want us to get a copy or any of these different
Yeah.
things? Like, oh, we'll just keep
Do you
it
want a
out.
quote?
Yeah.
What if we could pay for the photographer? Like, blah, blah. Like,
Yeah, like offering to
Yeah.
do the usual stuff of, oh, okay, the same way we bought you your horse. Like,
yeah, it's now there's another book there that I read. That one,
This
it's
one?
Bette Davis, an intimate portrait by Roy Mosley.
Yeah.
I read that. I don't believe any of that.
Really?
The first couple chapters are kind of nice, but like he I don't think he's real. I think he's a stalker. I think he made it up. I think he really wasn't friends with her. I think maybe he knew her in passing or he was a clinger, like a stage 3 celebrity clinger.
Yeah.
But like, I don't buy anything in his book because the way he speaks is the way that like it feels like Perez Hilton wrote this. Like, and then Lindsay said this and Paris said that. And like, what I told her is I said, you should just do this. Like, it's it's just so crazy. So like I didn't really put any info from his book into any of this because I don't trust anything he says. Honestly.
Gotcha.
Just like he says he was friends with Bette Davis. He says he was there. He were witness to some of these things that happened with BD and Kath and all this, but like I don't buy it. And I did go in and I read reviews about the book when it came out, and I think the consensus was that people don't buy it, and that he also wrote other books about his relationships with other celebrities. Okay. And so I think he just like his thing is like he is like I'm friends with celebrities. I write books.
I was around the corner. Yeah.
And so I don't buy that.
I was in the room where it happened.
So like I just know that I put on my Instagram, Mrs. Pearlmania 500 on Instagram. That I read this book.
Good plug.
But I'm not gonna actually talk about it because I don't believe he actually knew her.
Gotcha. In reality, this is probably your longest book club ever.
This is the longest book club episode.
Of 5 books.
A month book club.
5 books, 3 episodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Davis became an honoree at the Kennedy Center Honors for her contribution to film in 1987.
Okay.
In lieu of filming at this point in 1987, instead of doing any more movies or TV, she's not physically well. She begins appearing on talk shows, and she goes to Johnny Carson, Joan Rivers, Larry King, Letterman. She's discussing her career. She's doing this, and her appearances are incredibly popular. Everybody wants her because, again, quote, she's so bitchy. That's a quote. The quote. That was a quote from Kath's book. She says everybody keeps booking her because she's, quote, so bitchy. And Kath
because there's no filter left.
Yeah, because Kath wants her to stop being bitchy. She's like, yeah, Ben, you gotta be nice. And she's like, no, what are they gonna do? Cancel me? That doesn't even exist in 87. But like, she's like,
you know what it reminds me of? That one actress who did the Harry Potter. You know what I'm talking about? The older British actress.
Oh, I love her.
I can't remember what her name is.
Oh.
But yeah, she was in Harry Potter, and she said,
I thought you would be over it by now.
Yeah, the movie was 20 years ago. Grow up. And you're like, Jesus, she just does. But she goes on Graham Norton all the time and just rips people to shred because she don't give a shit.
No, she doesn't care.
She's like, I'm a 7-year-old lesbian. Who gives a shit?
I love her. Once I remember her name, I'm going to scream it while we're eating dinner or something. So her whole thing is she's going to all Letterman, Larry King, Rivers, and all them. And she never discusses her daughter. And they're always trying to bring it up. The book, the whole thing. And she's like, no, just persona non grata.
Miriam Margolyes.
Yes.
I had to look her up, and this is how I looked her up. Harry Potter lesbian actress old. Because I didn't want the other one to show up. The dame, whatever her name is. I can't remember that. I'm forgetting that one.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah.
In 1988 and 1989, Davis is honored for her career achievements, receiving the Legion of Honor from France, and I'm gonna butcher this, the Campione d'Italie from Italy. I don't know.
The Champion of Italy.
That one. And the Film Society of the Lincoln Center Lifetime Achievement Award.
Okay.
During the American Cinema Awards, which she had been nominated in 1989, she collapses at the award show.
Oh, no.
It's later discovered that her cancer had returned.
Oh.
She recovered sufficiently enough to travel to Spain. Because, again, she's in Italy to get that award from Italy.
Oh, okay.
Or wait, she was in France, I think.
Okay.
Whatever. She's in Europe and for those awards. And she collapses at one of the awards. And she travels to Spain. Oh, no, I'm sorry. See, I'm mixing myself up. She recovers enough to go to Spain, where she was honored with another award at the San Sebastian International Film Festival. So yeah, she gets sick at the one award show, and then was like, I'm rallying to go get another award at a different film festival. But during that visit, her health rapidly deteriorates, and she's too weak to actually make the journey back to the United States. So she travels to France, where she passes away from metastatic breast cancer on October 6th of 1989 at 81 years old in France. A memorial tribute was held by invitation only at the Burbank Studio, Stage 18 in Hollywood. So I guess the invite only was very specific because there was a lot of Hollywood people she didn't want there. And it was like, apparently she left a list to Kath and was like, these are the people you're not inviting.
That's amazing.
These assholes.
I mean, at 81, you kind of know. Yeah. You're like, listen, it's soon. And we don't know how soon, but it's soon. Yeah. So here's the list.
So one thing is that at the end of the tribute, the work light was turned on the set, which like is signals the end of production. Is like a big thing in Hollywood. Is like you turn on the light and that means that they're done for the day.
Yeah.
Instead of turning the lights off.
Yeah.
She was entombed at Forest Lawn Hollywood Hills Cemetery in Los Angeles. On her tombstone, under her name, it says, "She did it the hard way."
Yeah. Clearly.
Steven Spielberg purchased Bette Davis's Oscars for Dangerous, 1935, and Jezebel, 1938, when they were up for auction for over $200,000 for one and over $500,000 for the other, respectively. And he returned them both to the Academy of Motion Pictures and Arts and Sciences. So he bought them on auction and then gave them to the Oscars.
I think there's a thing where the Oscars now you can't you can't auction them anymore.
Yeah.
Like you're not supposed to sell them officially, and there's like rules around it. But I think the early ones they didn't have that restriction when they gave them out.
Michael Merrill, that's her adopted son, and Kath, her personal assistant, are now the executors of her estate.
Okay.
In her estate, she did say, and she said this and this and that she demanded that Kath write a book, and that's what Mrs. D&Me is.
Yeah, it's this book.
So one of her dying wishes is that Kath would write a book about their friendship. And so she did. It was like, I think it was actually part of the will. Like, you don't get any money that I'm leaving you. Because she left her, I believe, a substantial sum of money.
Yeah.
If you don't write a book saying how great our relationship was, which is suspicious. After everything we heard about
100%,
BD, it's suspicious for sure. But
I'm gonna make you work one last time.
But also, I really do think they liked each other. Like, so I don't know. Who knows? In her memory, Michael and Kath created the Bette Davis Foundation, which provides financial assistance to promising young actors and actresses. One of the recipients of this scholarship is Jennifer Goodwin. It's Jennifer, but with a G. Jennifer Goodwin.
Yeah.
She is the Snow White from Once Upon a Time.
Oh.
Remember her?
Oh, yeah.
She won the scholarship for being such a good actress.
Oh. And she used it to be Snow White.
She was Snow White Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
This show I only watched while having 100-degree fever for 3 days.
Yeah. That was
and hallucinated. I was like, this show's crazy.
Yeah, you told me the next day, you were like, I watched this. I imagine this crazy show. I'm like, you've been watching it on Netflix.
You've been watching Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, you got through like the first season and a half, and then your fever broke, and you looked at me out of nowhere and just went, "This show's awful."
No. Once my fever broke, I was like, why am I wasting my time?
I was sitting there like, I don't know why she's watching this shit.
And like,
they're battling Rumpelstiltskin.
I forgot about that. I was like literally just sitting in a reclining chair.
You're my
TV,
old lazy boy.
Just with blankets on me and a hot cup of tea for days, like just dying.
And I kept just bringing you soup. And I think at one point you were like, I want cheese puffs. I was like, what? And I handed you, I had a big barrel of cheese puffs.
Yeah.
And you were just eating handfuls of them.
And you were like, you need a vegetable. And I was like, fuck you.
Yeah, you're like, I hate you, but I love this show. And I was like, it's so bad. Like, you could just read Fables. It's a great comic book. And
I have
you were
read
like,
that. It's good.
I know. When your fever broke.
Yeah, I was.
And
so
you were
mad.
so mad you would watch that show. I gave you issue 1 of Fables.
Yeah.
And I was like, read this. You'll like it. That's what they were trying to do.
Yeah. In 1998, Meryl Streep received the first Bette Davis Lifetime Achievement Award.
For her Best Actress.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1998, she got the Lifetime Achievement Award. She's still acting. That was damn near 30
I only
years
added
ago.
that because in the first episode you talked about Meryl Streep being like our Bette Davis.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's funny because she did win a Bette Davis Lifetime Achievement Award.
But like I said, that was like 25 years ago. Like that's like that. She's had 25 years worth of fucking.
She's still killing it.
I'm saying is I understand she had a lifetime worth of achievements.
I think that the Bette Davis Lifetime Achievement Award is something they give out at the Bette Davis Foundation, which, having worked at a nonprofit, which is the Bette Davis Foundation, they need a big name to come to the fundraiser. So they give her an award so they have people come to the fundraiser.
Okay, I gotcha. It's still weird.
I know. All right, well, this is the last little bit of information I have to tell you.
Okay.
So Kath. Okay, I need to tell you what Kath did. Because
Okay.
I was like, I started reading up on Kath after I read her book, and I'm trying to figure out like
Catherine Cermak.
who she is as a person, right? So after Bette Davis dies, Kath is out here, dude. She might be the executive of the state, but she also she is the personal assistant of all personal assistants. She once won an award for best personal assistant.
Oh.
Okay, like she is the personal assistant.
Okay.
She was the personal assistant to Princess Sham Pahlavi, who was the Iranian royal of the Pahlavi dynasty. And
Of the Shah?
Yeah, of the elder sister of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the
Yeah.
last Shah of Iran.
Yeah.
She was her PA.
Wait, is that before Betty or after Betty?
I think it's after.
What?
I think these are afters.
Jesus. Okay.
And then she became the personal assistant for the statesman and journalist Pierre Sangler, who was an American journalist, author, and politician.
Yeah.
Who also served as the 9th press secretary for the United States President John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson.
Okay.
He served as U.S. Senator in 1964 and as a campaign manager for Robert F. Kennedy presidential campaign. She also was
Robert F. Kennedy Sr.
Yeah, senior.
Senior.
She also was a personal assistant for astronaut Buzz Aldrin.
What the fuck?
She was also a personal assistant for Berry Gordy Jr. He is the founder of Motown,
Yes.
the record label.
Yes.
She was also the co-creator of Where's Waldo. Her and this guy, Michael Gornall, are the people that invented Where's Waldo.
Bette Davis's personal assistant
Yeah.
invented Where's Waldo?
With Michael Gornall. Yeah.
Oh my God. I have a question.
Yeah.
There was a quote that you were reading me when you were reading all these books that you haven't said on this podcast.
Which one was it?
It was when she was in the Mayo Clinic
Oh, okay. I'll get it.
and
for you.
across the hall.
Yeah, I got you. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It didn't, I was,
It's a hard quote to
lot
fit
of
in.
the
It's a hard
time-
quote to fit in.
for the listeners, a lot of time when I'm going through and I'm writing out these, like how we're going to discuss stuff, I have to kind of create a storyline.
But there's a quote that's so good.
Yeah. I'm trying not to keep dead air. So one morning, so she's in the hospital recovering from the 3 strokes.
4 strokes.
4 strokes.
Yeah.
4 strokes. And so she's in, this hospital. And one morning a nurse comes into her room and says, "Good morning, Mrs. Nixon." I smiled, she said. "I'm not Mrs. Nixon. Mrs. Nixon is in the room across the hall." As a dedicated Democrat, the last person I would want to be is Mrs. Nixon. However, having a surplus of flowers, I felt it would be nice to send her one of my bouquets. Catherine asked one of her security men if he would please give it to her from me. Next morning, the security man brought the flowers back to us, saying Mrs. Nixon said thank you, but she's allergic to flowers. I couldn't help but wonder when Mr. Nixon was visiting her, if she had told him who the flowers were from. Maybe he was the one who was allergic to them.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. That's such a good.
I'm not Mrs. Nixon. Ooh,
Yeah, it's
ooh.
just so.
Yep.
The fact that she's across
I
the
also
hall.
just love that she's like, I have so many flowers.
I
What
should
if
just
I
send
just
over.
send her some of mine?
And then there was we're allergic to flowers. Get the
Get
fuck
out of
outta
here. Get it. But again, she's a hardcore Democrat and would
Hardcore.
yell about it all
Yeah.
day long.
Yeah.
So
Hated
yeah, that
Ronald Reagan.
is the weird, crazy journey of Bette Davis through my perspective, because it's not all. It's like
Yeah. No,
it's
that's a lot.
my version.
But
of,
that's been 3 weeks of Bette Davis.
3 weeks of Bette Davis. We did it.
While I've been trapped in various
Yeah.
airports across America.
Yeah.
That's it.
We did it.
We did it. I think this has been a lot.
Yeah.
And we're going to do our shout outs during the book club this week.
Okay.
I think that'll be next week's book club. And I think this is it. I can hear that we need to get down to the baby. So thank you so much to all the listeners, everybody out there who continue to support us across Patreon, who come out to the shows, all these different ways that things have happened. Thank you guys so much. And we will talk to you again very, very, very soon. Mrs. P, any last things you want to say?
Have a great week, everybody. And remember to drink some water and get some sunshine.
And remember to smile.
Yeah.
Because, listen, I don't want to curse us, but I feel good.
Knock on wood.
Too many frauds and too many scammers that we wish weren't real. Too many cons and too many spammers, and we're starting to feel like we've got too many tabs open. It's too many tabs. Remember to smile.